say you've been thinking about this thing for the past 13 years.
A man who now lives in Wisconsin is accused of drowning his wife in the bathtub of their suburban home.
You just saw 70-year-old Frank Buschauer. For 13 years, Frank has lived a free man after the mysterious drowning of his wife. And now, as this old man cries and begs,
I knew she was in there. Reached down and picked her up and saw her face. I knew she was dead.
he will realize that there is no escaping the past.
Frank, if you had something to do with this, you're going to have to let us know now.
I felt it was a mistake, but we live with our mistakes.
On February 28, 2000, just after 2 a.m., South Barrington Police in Illinois received a frantic 911 call. Frank Buschauer, a chemical engineer, claimed to have discovered his wife, Cynthia Risco, dead in their bathtub. Patrol Officer Bryant Hanazowski was the first to respond, and even with the few investigations he had done, red flags were waving. Cynthia was lying dead beside the tub, which had plants, glass containers, and drinks on the edge, despite her body supposedly being frantically pulled out of it. Cynthia, who was a holistic doctor, had a lot to live for. She and Frank had adopted a son who was less than a year old from Russia, and he was the center of her world. But in an instant, he lost his mom, and there was no one to answer how it happened aside from Frank. Frank was questioned for 13 hours, after which he requested counsel. From there, the case went cold. That is until 2011 when Bryant Hanazowski, now a sergeant in the Homicides Division, asked to reopen the case. After 2 years of investigation, police gathered enough evidence to have a real case. When officers approached Frank and asked to speak with him in 2013, he said he was willing to and had always wanted to find out what happened. Unknown to him, Sergeant Hanazowski had too. The following footage was provided to our team by the South Barrington Police Department via a FOIA request.
So it took so long. I just alarmed. We had to make your own coffee, Frank.
I can make your own coffee.
Yeah, nobody here. So, all right. You want to jump in the middle?
Okay.
And we can lay our books out and stuff like that, and kind of go over things. Hey, Frank, do you go by Frank or? Okay. And again, my name is Bob. Okay, and that's Bryant. As you can see, Bryant has been working on this thing for a while. He put these nice books together. We'll put everything in chronological order. Different people that he's interviewed and stuff like that are in the book, and we'll just kind of go over that. Back in 2000, when this thing first happened, you were interviewed by people from the state police.
Right.
And their interviews in the book also.
Okay.
So, and what they did back then, they read your Miranda rights, okay? And what we'll do now, we're going to read them to you again.
Right.
So just, just so everybody's covered and stuff like that. Okay, you want to kind of follow along here?
Bryant has actually been working on this case for much, much longer than Frank can possibly imagine. He's been waiting for this moment just as long as Frank has been dreading it. And when Frank's eventually confronted with that, his story will crumble. For now, police read him his Miranda rights and try to get him comfortable, because they know he won't be for much longer.
Hey, we can take breaks at any time. This is informal, okay? So, if you need to use the washroom, or if we need to use the washroom, we want to get more coffee, water, whatever. If you get hungry, you let us know. So we want to make this comfortable for all of us, all three of us, so. Okay.
Well, I hope this doesn't take too long. I have a son in school.
Yeah, we know that. That's why we wanted to stop by your house early this morning.
Okay.
So we wanted to get this thing done before there's any problems with your son.
Okay.
What time does he get out of school?
About, he'll get home around 3 o'clock. So
Does he get a ride home sometimes, or?
Well, that's the bus. He'll take the bus home.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to pick him up.
He likes a ride in the morning, so I give him a ride in the morning.
Nice, huh? Yeah. What time does he usually get home? The bus drop him off?
But drops him off about 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, okay. And he's how old?
14.
14? Okay. All right. You know what? We'll get kind of your pedigree a little bit. Make sure we got everything correct. I don't know as much as he knows, because he's been working on this, And like I say, I've been working on this on and off and stuff like that with him. If he has any questions or anything like that, then, we'll put our heads together and stuff like that. Brian has done a lot of interviews on this and stuff like that with people back from those days back there. He's put a lot of work in tracking these people down and re-interviewing them and stuff like that. And we'll kind of go through some of that stuff too, if that's okay with you.
That's
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we might as well kind of just start from the beginning, Let's go back. Let's take you back all the way to that day. Now, this happened 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you know what the date was?
I called on February 28th.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, that's when I called. Early in the morning. I think it was around 2:30 in the morning.
Okay. 2:30 in the morning?
I think so.
All right. So February 28th, 2000.
2000.
Okay. That's when this happened?
Right.
Okay. All right.
Worst day of my life.
Yeah. I can imagine. Very traumatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, how long were you guys married?
We were married about 3 years and 3 months, right around that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I've talked to a couple of people, but how did you initially meet Cynthia?
We were in a dating service. It was called Heart to Heart,
Okay.
and we met that way. She actually was the one that initiated the contact with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then back then, you guys weren't living in South Barrington.
No. She was living with her mom in Norridge, and I was living in Des Plaines.
Okay. And then when did you guys get married?
We got married on October 5th, 1996.
Okay. And then at some point, you made your way to South Barrington. Can you tell me about that? What happened? And like the decision to move out there and all that?
Well, my house was small, and we decided, my wife made a lot of decisions, so she decided she didn't want to be in a small house. We were looking around for a number of different places, and finally found some property out in South Barrington, decided to have a house built. And that was probably the beginning of a lot of our problems, having a house built.
Problems is the understatement of the century here. When I hear problems in a relationship, I assume you're arguing about cleaning, the dishes, or a coworker who's giving your spouse the eyes. This was much, much more than that. According to Cynthia's friends and family, Frank and Cynthia's relationship was so strained, and he was so furious with her, that she was terrified he was going to take her life.
And you mentioned earlier when you guys decided to build the house, that was kind of the beginning of were you guys, when you were first married, everything was good? Or
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, when you're building a house, first of all, we hired my cousin to build the house.
What was that?
My cousin.
Okay.
And probably a mistake to hire a relative to do, work. And so we got into it. Cost a lot of money, overruns in cost, and it was my cousin. My wife was very disappointed in the progress being made at the house, and rightfully so. And so there would, family is important to me. My cousin is important. I still love him, respect him. Was she right about them not being competent? The people he hired, I trusted my cousin. The people he hired, I'm not sure did. Let me see. I think they may have pulled the wool over his eyes, and by doing so, had cost overruns on our house, and it caused a lot of conflict between Cynthia and myself. So.
And when you mean cost overruns, how much are you talking about?
Well,
I know a little bit might be okay. How much are you talking about?
Well, we're talking about a house that cost us $800,000 to build. Okay.
That was the final price?
That was right around the final price.
Okay.
When I unloaded it before I moved out, I lost about $150,000. So, yeah, you know, there were cost overrides. Because how can you build a house for a relative or cousin and say, you know, you can get your money back out of the house? And she priced houses around the area and said, you know what, this house is nowhere near that cost. And she was right.
Now, when the house was being built, were you still living in Des Plaines?
Yeah,
Okay. A house, did you say you had there?
yeah.
Okay. So, were you going back and forth, you know, kind of keep an eye on the progress of the house? And Cynthia also?
Yeah, yeah. So
Maybe more her than you, maybe,
her more than me, yeah.
because you're working.
I'm working.
She's not really working besides doing the nutritional.
Yeah, she would do a nutritional consulting, and she didn't have a full contingent of clients,
Right.
so she would work maybe 2-3 days a week.
Plus, you're building this house to be built around her business.
Right.
So she's really interested in this house and getting it built and getting
Having
it
it
done
done
as
right.
quick as she can and
Yeah.
having it done right, because she's going to be bringing clients out that way, and
Right.
she wants to impress everybody, and
Right.
you know, so she wants to make sure that this house is pristine. You know, the money that was paid to build this house, was that primarily from you or from her, or combination?
Combination.
Did you have to take out a loan, or did you get any money from anybody?
Yeah, we got a loan from my mother-in-law.
Oh,
So
okay.
we paid her back. I paid her back actually even after my wife had passed away. I had some debt yet, and I paid her.
Yeah.
How much did she loan you guys?
I think it was like 150,000 or something
Okay.
like that.
So a good sized loan.
Good size loan.
But you said you paid it back.
Paid it back.
Okay.
Nice. That's nice of her.
Yeah, it was a little more than nice of his mother-in-law to loan him $150,000. According to one of the many letters that Cynthia wrote to Frank, their inability to pay back the money that her mother loaned them actually forced her to sell her house and move into low-income housing for the elderly. It seems that the conflict surrounding the house was causing family issues on both sides. The officer asks if Cynthia got along with Frank's cousin, who was building the home. His name is redacted in order to protect his privacy.
So, did she get along at all?
Yeah, we got along quite well initially. I mean, and even to the point where his son stood up at our wedding. So,
Oh.
yeah.
So you guys were married, what, a year before you started building this house?
We were married a year, and we were also going to Dr. Watson as his marriage counselor, because this was causing a lot of problems, you know.
Man, it got that bad.
Yeah, it got that bad, yeah.
You know, the problem with that is, you know, your cousin, you're kind of getting stuck in the middle.
Yep.
She's yelling at you. You're trying to keep peace with him because you love him. It's your family.
Yeah.
And things are getting kind of crazy, huh?
Pretty crazy.
So it got to the point to where you guys you needed some counseling,
Right.
either through Willow Creek, and then you had this guy in Hoffman Estates.
Yeah,
and
and this.
helping you guys.
Yeah, I think he was recommended from Willow Creek. Dr. Watson was,
Yeah.
and you know, at first I didn't want to go, but after going to him, and I think it was the right choice for both of us.
Yeah. They had you guys writing letters to each other or something like that?
Yeah.
What was the deal on that?
Well, you know, with Cynthia, everything I said, I felt like I needed a lawyer when I talked to my own wife. Because, well, you would say this, you know, and then she'd keep track. And I said, you know what? Let's just write down, you know, what we said and why we said it. And Dr. Watson was certainly in favor of me doing that. And so actually we were, the week that she died, we were scheduled to go in and talk to Dr. Watson that week. and I had my thing written out and was ready to respond to her questioning, and she had given me a list of questions and comments, and I responded in writing to them so that I could think about it rather than trying to respond out of emotion.
Right.
At the moment, I could think about what her questions were, respond to them in a calm and thoughtful manner rather than responding as a defense mechanism.
So these letters were written, I think Brian's got a copy of these letters. We'll
Okay.
take a look at those. But they were written prior to the counseling?
Prior to the counseling.
Okay, not in the counseling session
No,
or nothing
no,
like
no,
that.
no.
Okay, you write a letter, you know.
Yeah, she wrote me.
Was that her suggestion?
Um,
To write these letters or
I
questions or whatever
think
it
it
was?
was Dr. Watson, actually. I mean, I said, I need a lawyer to respond to you.
Did he feel that was going to be therapeutic for you guys? Or?
Yeah, he thought he was in favor of it, and I was actually looking forward to going to the meeting because I had all my responses written out and was ready to answer, her thoughts and her concerns.
According to the letters that he wrote at the time of these arguments with his wife, it wasn't just harsh words that he was worried about exchanging with her. In one letter, he wrote, "Our arguments have been extreme at times, where rather than withdraw, I'm on the attack. If we can't resolve our conflict in a constructive manner, then divorce is better than assault or murder." The officers carefully go through the pages of the letters they found at the crime scene, but not the content, in order to cement who has written what. That gives them the confirmation they need in order to dive into what the letters really say, and the horrible reality that they suggest.
So, reading these letters, she's referring to you as a second person,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you're responding back to her with your letter.
Yeah.
Now, reading these letters myself, there's a lot of conflict,
Sure,
in these letters.
absolutely.
I mean, some of them, these letters are pretty heated, between the two of you guys. So, what's the deal with that? What's all the conflict about?
Well, obviously about, she wanted me to pursue actually a lawsuit initially against my cousin, okay? Obviously, I did not want to do that. I don't want to go to court, taking my cousin to court, and she eventually came up with a much better way, and that was through mediation, and we were trying to, through mediation, and we actually were going to try to get my cousin into mediation. So we met with my cousin the one time, and just Cynthia, myself, and my cousin, and we went over some of our differences, and came out of that much worse than when we went in. Because
Who was that with? You mediated that with who?
we did not have a mediator.
Oh, you never did.
We didn't have a mediator, and that's why after that meeting we actually needed a mediator, and she saw the need for it because she, like my cousin told me, you go to talk with your friends and your relatives, you don't lecture at them. And Cynthia initially said it was more of a lecture, lecturing my cousin on what his morality was and what his position was. So it was more of a lecture to him than a conversation back and forth. And that's part of the reason why I needed to respond to her with writing, because it would have been more of a one-way street.
How did that make you feel when you were in that meeting? And by meeting, it's not a formal meeting. You guys were just sitting around a kitchen table.
We were at. I think we were at my cousin's house, or I don't recall exactly where we met. But it was more of a lecture, and
Was she upset with them?
oh yeah,
Yelling at
oh
them?
yeah, very much
And
so.
then what were you doing at that time? Just kind of sitting there,
I
like,
was kind of sitting there, just
trying to keep the
sitting there,
peace?
well, my
Let her vent, or
let her vent. My cousin let her vent, and just went away and said they just agreed to he agreed to disagree. I don't recall all the details of that meeting, but it was not good.
Well, how did it make you feel when you're sitting there and she's
Well,
attacking? It sounds like attacking.
Oh yeah, he's attacking. Yeah, it's an attack.
How did that make you feel yourself?
Well, obviously it didn't make me feel very good. I mean, I certainly resented it. I mean, the fact that she would do something like that. I mean, you discuss, you agree to disagree if there's something there, and then you don't accuse somebody of being immoral or I don't know what exactly the words you use.
If someone had cost me hundreds of thousands more dollars than I was expecting to spend, I would probably be lecturing them too. And to be frank, Cynthia seems to have had plenty of reasons to resent him too. Despite her mother reportedly being forced to sell her house because of their inability to pay her back, Frank admits to detectives that he loaned his cousin's wife $30,000 in order to help them stay afloat as their business struggled. Cynthia only found this out after seeing the money come out of their savings account. It seemed that was another stepping stone towards the end. Trying to establish the timeline of their demise, police try to determine when exactly the letters were written and exchanged between the couple.
how about these letters? How long before?
Those were 2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah.
And then how about the mediation when the three of you guys were sitting together?
Oh, that was not me. We never got into mediation. We never
No,
got to the point.
between the three of you.
Oh,
guys.
between the three of us.
They have
The
a
meetings, I guess.
the meeting or whatever you want to call it at his house. You remember
That might have been 5, 6 months, probably a month before I wrote out this check. Or so.
Oh, okay. So maybe 4 months. The meeting went together,
Yeah.
and then how long after that was the check written?
Oh, I don't know, a month maybe.
A month after that.
Yeah.
So, and things kept on getting worse
Yeah.
to the point you guys are now going to counseling. You got this stuff going on here with these letters. Kept on building up.
Is this an everyday thing with her in this house? I mean, it sounds that way. I mean,
Pretty close. I mean, yeah, it's like I described it as being nibbled to death by a duck.
Really?
Yeah.
For you?
For me, yeah, because it would be a constant reminder, a daily type thing.
Was this going on as soon as you woke up in the morning? Boom, she's on you?
Well, no, not quite that bad.
No?
Not quite that bad. I mean, there were a few days, especially after we had gotten married. I mean, after it came into our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and we were trying to make things work,
Mm-hmm.
and so, I mean, she had everything she wanted. She had the house, she had the office, she had the child, and so I think things were actually getting a little bit better.
Yeah. What was the deal with it? Was there negotiation about adopting the child? What was that all about?
Well, it was, we had both wanted children. We were older and we were no longer physically capable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were looking to have children. And she said, well, if you love me and want to be with me, you could, you were willing to, you were willing to have with me, to have a child. Why not have a child from Russia? And I said, well, I certainly was not objectionable to it because I do like children. I have worked with children, and I thought it would help us. And not only help us, but we thought we could help a child in this world. And
Did you think it would help your marriage because
yeah.
this is going on?
Yeah, that's because it was, she wasn't getting what she wanted there, and maybe I could give her something that she didn't want that was
Kind of take her mind off of things,
Yeah.
maybe kind of deflect her.
equally as important. Yeah.
When you keep her busy and
Yeah.
she's talking about the baby and not the house.
Yeah,
I mean, was that the motivation, more
Well,
or less? I mean,
that
obviously, for us now, we're all a little bit older.
Yeah.
I mean, even for myself, having a child right now, you worry about your age and stuff like that.
Sure.
So was the hope really that this would calm things down for you and give you that time to get through that, whatever was going on, as you call it, nibbled by a duck?
Yeah, I just wanted to let her know that I was still totally committed to her, and that I was willing to, even go as far as having a child with her just because I was committed to her.
Now, did you draw up a contract or some agreement that if you adopted, who's from Russia, correct?
Right.
That she would drop.
No. That shouldn't be part of the deal. I mean,
Was that brought up by anybody?
no.
Was there any discussions that
No.
I think that was in the letter. Was there something in the letter about that? That, I'll agree to adopt this child if you agree to lay off the stuff with the house.
You'll have to show me because I don't recall that at all.
Hopefully you know this, but having a child is never a way to save a marriage. That unfortunately couldn't be more obvious than in this case. Just 3 months after their son was adopted from Russia, Cynthia was killed. He never got to know the adoptive mother who wanted nothing more than to raise him and watch him grow up. Though Frank paints a bit of a different picture.
I think she loved money more than she loved me.
Really? She loved your money.
Yeah.
Are you sorry you married her?
Yes,
Even to this day?
to this day.
You wish you would have never married her?
Yes.
Why?
Well, obviously she loved money more than me, and I want to be in the focus of any marriage that I would go to.
Of course.
Yeah,
Hard to take, right?
hard to take.
And she's nagging you every day?
Well, not every day, but often enough.
A lot.
But I mean,
Often enough.
some of these letters, Frank, I mean, I'm just seeing the way that you're writing, and I could feel your frustration and your anger about what's going on. I mean, talking about, what makes you think you're my niece. I mean, things like that. I mean, it's mentioned quite a bit that, controlling
Yep.
and
Very
stuff
controlling.
like that. Let me go here. From letter number 8, I'm just going to read this little paragraph real quick. When we are in church, you will write out a check for the amount that you want and hand it to me, put it in the offering plate. My mother did this to me as a child. Maybe saying that you treat me like a is wrong, like a child may be more appropriate.
Right.
I am not your child, nor should I be made to feel so. When Bob and I read these letters, we could feel, I could feel the way that you felt about the situation, and I can kind of, put myself in your spot. I mean, if you're not feeling loved, how did that make you feel? I could see it on the letters, but how did that make you feel? Because you mentioned it quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, if you don't feel loved, you don't feel good about the relationship. But,
Right.
I certainly felt that love is not just an emotion. It's something you work at, and that's what we learned at Willow Creek. That you work at a relationship, and if you make a commitment, you keep working to make that commitment better. And so, I felt that our marriage should be more not even other-centered, but because we were Christians, it should be Christ-centered. And so our relationship, and once our relationship would be Christ-centered, then we could maybe be other-centered and each other-centered. So I felt that we should be working on that relationship.
I'm not entirely sure that someone in a Christ-centered relationship should be accusing his wife of treating him like an N-word. Perhaps it's not surprising, but the hypocrisy continues.
You went in the adoption thinking that you shouldn't have married her? Or when...
Yeah, I mean...
That it was a mistake?
I felt it was a mistake, but we live with our mistakes. We often live with our mistakes, and I just, felt that divorce, I don't see divorce as an option for marriages. I think that's a poor choice. I mean, if at all avoidable, it should be avoided. And that people should work at their marriages. I mean, everybody has a marriage, and there are difficult times in their marriages, and they need to work at it.
Frank doesn't believe in divorce, but from the sound of things, he believes in something much more drastic. Officers ask for Frank's retelling of events the night that Cynthia was murdered.
I was reading the book, and put it down for a while, and fell asleep.
Do you know about what time that was?
It was maybe between 10 and 10:30, somewhere around there. Because then work is the next day, and so I fell asleep there, and didn't wake up until I heard crying from, which was about 2:30 in the morning or so, and I rolled over to, thought it was her turn to, take care of him, and, said, Cynthia, you want to go into, the other room and roll over, and she's not there. And then I hear the motor in the tub going. And I knew she was in there.
How did you know she was in there?
Well, the motor was going. It was like, oh no, so I got up and ran in there and found her.
How did you find her, Frank?
I went in there and I was looking, and the top of the tub was covered with scum of some sort, and apparently it was her vomiting. And I looked for her, and the water was still running in the tub, and I didn't see her. And then I reached down, was looking, and I think it was at the opposite end, and I reached down and picked her up and saw her face. And I knew she was dead.
How did you know?
Well, she wasn't breathing. She had been on there, and then I pulled her out of the tub over the side and onto the floor, and then I just left and went into the bedroom and made the call.
Do you know how long before the time you pulled her out of the tub till you called 911?
A matter of minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay. Was she face up, face down? Do you remember?
She was definitely face up, and they told me that wasn't possible the last time I interviewed people, and I'm saying, no way, she was face up.
Face up in the tub.
She was face up. I saw her, I pulled her out, and she was face up.
Do you remember if she was face up or face down on the floor?
Oh, I don't remember.
I mean, maybe think about it,
Yeah. Don't recall.
Don't recall if you placed her down, face down or face up.
Probably face up. I wouldn't wait, but I put her face on the floor. Into the floor. I probably put her either on her side or on her back.
Did you try doing any rescue efforts?
No.
CPR?
No.
Mouth to mouth?
No.
Why?
Because I knew she was dead.
How? I mean,
When
whatever.
when you leave the bedroom, and you know this has been going since when she went in at 10 or 10, whatever it was, to 3:30 in the morning, and you hear this thing running. I mean,
Did she have any signs of death other than maybe no pulse that you saw or noticed?
signs of death. I don't know what would be a sign of
Rigor
death.
mortis, lividity,
No,
anything like that?
no, I didn't notice anything like that.
Okay. Just so I can understand too, could you just, if you don't mind, stand up and just show me how you actually got her out, just so I don't mistake it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
So like, say this is the tub right here.
Okay. If this is the tub right here, I was down like this, bent over.
And is this the actual, like, outside here, and there's a step you're saying?
There's a step there.
Okay, so you go here, and then what did you do?
I pick her up. I pull her over to the side, helping with her with the tub, supporting her on the side because there's a side here, putting her down on the floor over here.
Was she directly in the front of the tub, or?
She was, probably towards the back on the side there.
Okay. And then when you were pulling her out, did you knock anything down? Because from looking at the pictures, there was a lot of stuff around the side, some glass jars, and looked like a coffee type deal.
She had a dispenser there.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're going in that way, just looking at the picture, I'm just wondering, did you knock anything over
No,
in a rush to, you just discovered her?
No.
And there's nothing?
nothing.
Okay. So did you pick her just up?
I picked her up pretty much. I mean, she has the buoyancy of the water of a full tub, okay?
Mm-hmm.
She's under 100 pounds, so picking her up, not a real big deal.
Police have successfully gotten Frank to lay out everything without him even realizing. He's given them multiple motives, his established timeline of what happened, and how Cynthia's body was discovered. He has no idea that the officer asking him these questions is a man who was forever affected by what he saw in Frank's bathroom over a decade ago. A man who has been waiting patiently for the moment you're about to see.
And then the police got there quickly, or it took a long time, or?
They got there pretty quickly, yeah. Maybe 15 minutes to half an hour, maybe.
They got there 15 minutes later?
Yeah.
After you called?
Yeah, 15 minutes, maybe. The police got there about that time, and then there were other people who came quite a bit later.
Oh, okay. But the first officer?
The first officer that got there, maybe 15 minutes or so.
15 minutes after you called?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember what that officer looked like?
No.
It was me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I met you at the door.
Okay.
I might not have as much hair,
Okay.
but I'm the first officer that got there.
Okay.
And I got there within a minute. I remember that.
Okay.
And I didn't know what it was, and you greeted me at the door and said you wiped out. So.
You have some pictures we can show? Have you seen pictures? Did they show you any pictures way back when?
They showed me some pictures. They showed me that her knuckles were scraped, and I really don't know how she got all those injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look here.
I got a couple of them. I got some smaller ones too, but these are just the big ones.
Do you recall, now you can see the whirlpool in this one, and she's laying next to the tub there, face down.
Okay.
Do you remember putting her in that position?
I don't remember putting her in that position. I mean, all I remember is bringing her out of the tub here and onto the floor.
Where were you standing at, Frank?
Well, I had to probably get up on the step here in order to do that.
This step or way up there?
This step right here.
Oh,
The first step.
First step, yeah.
Okay. So you're standing on that step. Initially, you stand on the step, you look in the tub, don't see her. And then, what do you say? You start feeling for her
Feel.
because the water's high.
Mhm.
And then you feel her, you see her face up, and then you reach in, pull her by under her arms,
Probably under her arms, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And kind of pull her head first over here,
Yeah.
and then just kind of slide her,
Mhm.
or did you lift her up and place her down there?
As far as I recall, I slid her out, but I don't recall lifting her.
Lifting her?
Mhm.
Because she's not that heavy, you know.
No.
You could have lifted her with no problem, right?
Probably.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe with the adrenaline flowing or something like that, you might have a little extra strength. Boom. Pull her out. Okay.
The one thing I remember when I got there is that the tub was not full
Right.
and the motor was still running. And I remember that the motor was bothering you and you wanted it shut off.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
The
Ryan,
wa-
do you remember if the water was running at that time?
No, not when I got there. The water wasn't running. And the water was just a little bit higher than this level, which is right around the lower jets area, the big jets, the main jets, I guess you'd say. And then I saw her in this position, just like she didn't change. We didn't move her when we took these pictures and stuff like that.
Okay.
Anything that I'm telling you is incorrect?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So when you got there, the water level maybe below the jets? Is that why it's making so much noise?
It could have been. The motor was definitely running. And it
No
was,
bubbling?
No. And if it was just from spray going over it. But I know that later on, thereafter, not that long actually, you asked to have that motor shut off.
Okay.
And I think we ended up shutting it off at one point, obviously, because it's not running right there. Let's see here. Okay. So, is this how you found her, or?
No,
Okay.
the tub was way up.
And you can see right here on this one, in this picture, this part on Whirlpool, but there's actually some of that scum that you talked about. Either it's vomit or feces, I'm not sure what it is, but it was at that level.
Right.
So I could see that the water was at the level at one point.
At one point it was at that level.
But when I arrived there, within a minute or two after you calling, I mean, I was right down the street. I was actually at the movie theater down the street
Okay.
when you called. So it was, at 2 in the morning, there's no traffic, so I got there real quick.
Frank, how does the level get from being way up there to way down there within a few minutes? How does that happen?
Well, apparently I shut off the spigot because it was running, and whether it took me 5 minutes to make the call, and whether it took you 1 minute to make it there, I don't know.
Okay. What do we have next?
This is actually, I'll put this as, we'll put this Office 1. It's actually a copy of one of the letters that were in the trash. And that's where we first saw the letters when we were at the house.
Okay.
So this it's just copies of basically what we went over earlier, and we can talk about them a little bit more coming up, but we found that in the trash. Now, do you know who threw that in the trash?
No.
No? Okay. And then also, just some of the ones that I blew up. This is actually after Cynthia passed away. We grabbed some of the garbage and actually found the original adoption papers in there. And I'll put this as adoption 1. Do you know why? I mean, you can see the different ink and stuff like that.
Well, I've got copies of all the adoption papers, so.
Frank, do you have any pictures of Cynthia and the injuries she had on her?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at those two.
We're going to call this roll 1-1, and these are just the smaller pictures of some of the ones I've already shown you. Same thing again with the view from the bedroom, or actually here, the bathroom, with her covered there. Is it refreshing your memory that you might have covered her? Because I did not. And when I went up there, I remember specifically, and this whole incident is pretty well burned in my brain of when I remember.
I do not recall putting it on her, but yeah, obviously I must have.
This is the equivalent of a child getting caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Faced with photos that directly contradict his retelling of events, Frank has no idea what to say. But how is he going to react when he's faced with scientific evidence that confirms that there's no way this was an accidental drowning?
And the interesting thing here is when you look at the body, you see that there's actually pooling of blood, which is lividity. I'm sure you understand that. But it shows us that she was in that position. For me as an investigator, when I'm looking at something and I see pooling of blood, it tells me that body's been at that position for some time, and that the blood has gone with gravity to the direction of where the body is. So you can see here there's heavy pooling of the blood here in the breast area and then even in the face, and she was actually, to me, lying on her stomach.
Looking at this picture, looks like there's some injuries on her knuckles. You say that you may have seen something like this before?
I saw that, yeah.
Back then?
I
Okay. And do we know how that happened?
have no idea.
Prior to her taking this whirlpool bath, was there any injuries on her
No.
prior to that?
No.
You guys didn't get in any kind of scuffle or anything like that prior to her taking the whirlpool?
No.
That one's Cynthia A, this one's Cynthia B. And again, it just shows those knuckles right there.
Do we know how that happened, Frank?
No way.
Looks like there's a little scratch on her there, on her torso, under her left arm.
You can't see it as well in this photo. This is Cynthia C, but she had cuts here on her bridge of her nose and then down here by her mouth, along with a scrape here on her chest. So it just appears that there's a numerous amounts of injuries to her, you know, from what we're seeing.
She had something in her
And
leg.
then down here on her leg as well. You can see that line right there below her pelvis.
Cynthia had over 15 abrasions all over her body. Unfortunately for Frank, police know exactly how she got each and every one.
Do you remember her having any of these injuries prior to going into the tub? Do we know how these injuries happened?
Here's Cynthia D. And you can see on her right knee, there's a pretty good fresh cut right there. Did she have that? Like Bob was asking you the other ones, did she have that before?
No.
Do you know how she would have gotten that?
No idea.
Okay. Looking at these pictures and stuff like that, there was an autopsy done on her. Okay. And the pathologist at the time took pictures also. And he found that these pictures were suspicious also. So that's why at that time there was the ruling that was made at that time warranted further investigation. So we've had experts look at these pictures, you know, and we've actually met with experts that we've been working with too. And what's happening now, this case has been ruled a homicide. It's not accidental, you know. So there was injuries on her neck too, where there was a big hemorrhage on her neck, to where it looked like somebody had her by her neck and pushed her under the water. So, and we're believing at this point that maybe, that you may have had something to do with her getting pushed under the water and drowning. So that's where we're at this point.
There's 3 medical examiners, which are all experts in the area of water-related death, along with 2 experts that are in the field of water death investigation, have all written opinions that's saying there's no other reason for this, what happened to Cynthia, other than a homicide in that she was forced under the water. The hemorrhage on her neck indicates that she was held under the water for a period of time where she did drown. She did drown, but it was because she was held under the water. And then during the medical examination, the ME also noticed that there was petechia in the eyes, in the scalp, which indicates the same thing, a type of strangulation type thing, or forced under, where someone's actually struggling to breathe. So we've, in the last 3 years, had 5 experts extensively. We've reconstructed the crime, and they all concluded and wrote opinions that led to the change of this to a homicide.
Frank, if you had something to do with this, you're going to have to let us know now. Just say you've been thinking about this thing for the past 13 years. So we want you to tell us the truth and exactly what happened here.
Well, we know that you're a good person, and we understand what was going on in the background, but I know it weighs on you, and you know what happened.
I've always wanted closure on this. Now, I can tell you one thing. My son one time came down to the kitchen, and he opened a cabinet door, and he peed inside the cabinet. And I slapped him on the butt and sent him to bed and cleaned up. And the next day I asked him what happened, and he said, nothing. He said, I don't remember you slapping me on the butt. I don't remember doing that. The only way I could have done this would be that without any recall, because I don't recall anything. And that's the truth.
Not remembering isn't a good defense, but it's one Frank has kept up for over a decade. In his initial interrogation back in 2000, which lasted for 13 hours, Frank said that he could have killed Cynthia, but that he didn't remember. He asked the police if they could give him a truth serum. If they could have, I can promise you, that interrogation would have lasted 13 minutes, not 13 hours.
You gotta say something. You can't just say I had no recall. Plus, with Bryant being there so fast, the water being low, looking at her body, she's dry. You're dry. She's dry. There's no water on the floor. The only indication that she was in the water, her hair was damp. There had to be some time between the time you pulled her out of this tub and put her on the floor that you called 911. It wasn't an instant thing like that. You didn't call 911 and 2 minutes later, he's there. First thing he noticed, everybody's dry. How does that happen?
And that her legs are up in the air, which is a sign of rigor mortis.
Right. If you look at the positioning of her body, it couldn't have happened the way you're saying it happened, the way you're telling us now. If you look at her, here she is, lying on the floor. Her legs are in the upright position. Her body is stiff. To drag her over the side of the tub, her body wouldn't have been like that. Plus, this indicates to us that she was face down in the tub. There's lividity, like Brian talked about, on her bottom. If she was face up in the tub, her whole back would be red. The lividity would be on her back. Everything's on her front. Putting her back in the tub, if she was back in the tub in this position, her feet would be sticking out above the top of the tub. So when you walked in there initially, you would have definitely seen her. There was no feeling around for her. The lighting was, basically the way it is right here.
And what you see
it would be like the way you're saying.
The legs are actually formed in rigor mortis to the actual shape of the tub. Her head was where you said it was, but she was face down and the legs were going up on the side of the tub. And they rested there for a period of time until you pulled her out, and they remained in that position. They don't just, when you take her out, they don't just go up. They have to stay in that position. Or if you, like you said, it would have been flat, you would have not seen this. This tells me a lot. And I remember that specifically. So one thing I remembered that when I walked in that room, I knew she, like you said, she was deceased. But I checked for a pulse, and I saw that these two legs were in a fixed position, which would indicate, along with that lividity, that she's laying face down, opposed to what you're telling us is face up. But the tub was still in the house, and we actually had someone the same size as Cynthia get into the tub, and when they put their legs in that position, and their head in that position, the legs actually go up, and where you could see them out of the water. And then also, I consulted with somebody who's been a whirlpool expert for jacuzzi for about 40 years. And he says even with a bubble bath soap in there, you still would see a human body.
I'm sorry, but I remember what I remember.
You got to think back, because we're here to help you through this thing. You got to think back like it was yesterday, you know what I'm saying?
You know, the last time I went through an interview with this, I was asked, how did I put my hands around her neck? And how did I do this, and how did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, as far as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recall any of this.
Do you recall? Do you recall being in the bathroom when she's taking a whirlpool?
I recall, all I recall is pulling her out of the water at about 2:30 in the morning. And I recall the tub being full and the water running, and the vomit on the top that I couldn't see her. That I recall.
But that can't be
I'm
true
sorry.
what you're saying.
That's what I recall.
I'm not arguing with you, you know what I'm saying, but it's just looking at the physical evidence, and then what you're saying,
What I
the
recall,
physical evidence doesn't match what you're saying.
well,
And you're an engineer, so you kind of understand where we're coming from. We're using facts, not emotion or anything, facts to tell you what we believe happened, backed up by 3 medical examiners who have done thousands of autopsies, specifically more or less with water-related death. And they say there's a 0 chance for any other possibility. There's 0 chance. And we took photographs of the outside of the house so nobody broke into the house. So if it wasn't you, then who was it?
no idea. No idea. I mean,
Frank, listen, you're a religious person, right? Cynthia's got to rest in peace, but we need to know the truth here.
yes,
You know,
we do need to know the truth.
And we believe, listening to you now, you're telling the story, but when it comes to the whole story, it seems to me like you're leaving something out. The part where you don't remember and stuff like that, I don't believe that part.
The tests that police ran with the tub revealed a shocking amount about the crime committed against Cynthia. Not only did the subjects they had recreate the scene in the tub get the exact same injuries as Cynthia had at the time of their death, but every single person who picked the subject out of the bathtub got absolutely drenched with water. After running the test dozens of times, it was determined that it would have been impossible to remove Cynthia from the tub without getting wet, regardless of the individual's strength. Frank was bone dry when officers arrived on the scene.
We actually had the bathtub. We took the bathtub out of the house and recreated it. You know, we know the bathtub was leaking. We know how much it was leaking, the rate it was leaking. They did a leak test on it. And we know how much the drain didn't seal correctly. So they did a leak test on it to see how long it would take the drain down to that level. And what you're saying doesn't match the work that Brian did on this case.
So we had somebody, we filled up the tub, we put somebody in it, and we actually did all kinds of simulations to figure out what happened. But you know what? We need to hear from you. And I know that you want to say it, and I know you don't want it to break your lips. But for your closure, what you know is true. You guys were having arguments about this house.
Oh, yeah.
It was heated. Those letters were exchanged.
Yeah.
There was most likely an exchange between you guys when she was in the tub, and you just blew. Because the next day you called somebody else and said you might have done it in a fit of rage.
People that we've talked to, they all believe that you had something to do with this.
And I've got from reports back then that this wasn't the only time that Cynthia was threatened. There was some physical, like, were you getting really fed up? You know, and this, you gotta stop this with, you just gotta stop this, or I'm just gonna leave you, I'm gonna divorce you, or I'm gonna kill you. You know, one of those things left your lips. And like you said before, the marriage was a mistake. But we need to come to closure on this, because everybody, and you're a man of science or engineering, you could see by what we're telling you, it makes sense. It's not illogical for what we're telling you. I mean, no person that drowns has 17 wounds on their body, including a hemorrhage in their neck. You don't just get that by falling asleep in a tub. There's got to be force applied to it to cause bleeding inside. And it was 2 up here. And it doesn't have to be forceful, just enough to hold it down and to cause a hemorrhage. And sometimes it can be just a little bit of pressure.
And that would explain these injuries on her also. You know, because she's trying to get out of the water, and you're pushing her into the water. So there's got to be a struggle going on here, a little bit, not some massive struggle or anything.
I thought about getting a hypnotist or something to try to find out, you know, what happened that night. Maybe to recall the details better, but no, I just don't. I don't recall.
Cynthia's close friends didn't need a hypnotist to remember how scared Cynthia was of Frank. In their interrogations, almost all of them had a story to tell about Cynthia and Frank's relationship. One friend disclosed that Cynthia said Frank was like Jekyll and Hyde and that he would fly into rages. Another friend told police that shortly before her murder, Cynthia had told them Frank threatened to kill her if she pursued a court case against his cousin.
So these letters, just to go back real quick, letter number 8, it said, going to the peacemaker, flight may be a legitimate response in extreme circumstances when it is impossible to resolve the conflict in a constructive manner. Our arguments have been extreme at times to the point where rather than withdrawal, I am now on the attack. What does that say to you? What does that mean to you? If you're the author of that, what does that mean?
That doesn't necessarily mean physically, but
No,
you know.
but I think it speaks to what, you're just not going to take it anymore. You're either going to leave, get a divorce, or, as happened before, if she keeps bringing up these issues, you might do something else. Because she told her friends that on a number of occasions, you took your hands around her neck and said, if you don't drop this, I'm going to kill you.
No,
And it's not just one person telling us that.
I did it once. It was only once,
Okay.
but I did do it once.
Can you explain that for me?
We had a meeting with and it was in the kitchen of the new house. It was before it was complete, and there was something with the countertop that didn't put in the proper doors or whatever it was. And she got so upset with him, she wanted the whole thing redone, and she made a big scene out of it. And I was very angry with her afterwards, and I think I put my hands maybe on her neck, maybe on her shoulders, and shook her and said, you know, I could kill you. And I did say that. and I regret it, and I always did, and I told her that. But yes, there was one time.
I mean, she shared with a lot of her friends that she was actually afraid of you, that you were going to do something physically and harm her.
The officers forced Frank to sit in silence, looking at the photos of his wife and the scene of her murder for just under 10 minutes. It seems that gives him enough time to think about what's to come and to somehow come to terms with it.
What do you think, Frank? What are you thinking? What's that? What's that?
Her mother.
What about her?
How does she respond when she finds this out?
Well,
Because I have tried to keep her grandson in her life, and who's going to keep him in her life, and how are things going to work out?
he'll be fine. We'll make sure he's taken care of. Right? 88 years old. The next stop from here, guess where we're going? To explain things to her.
Are we going to get along? What are we going to do?
We'll take care of it. Don't worry. School right now,
Right.
so we're not going to disturb that at all. Still early enough. You know, we'll take care of Sophie. Don't worry about her. She probably knows anyway.
Think so?
Yep. Guaranteed. Because she's been interviewed way back when, and I read her report. And she's got her suspicions also. She doesn't believe that, she didn't believe this was an accident from day one. But she cares for you too.
Care for her?
Mm-hmm.
But she knows that there's a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde factor.
That's the way she explained to you. Way back when. That's what it said in her report.
You told someone the next day that you did it in a fit of rage.
Exactly.
You told someone the day after you were interviewed that you might have done it in a fit of rage. So you believe that it's possible.
I believed it was possible. I knew it was one of three things. It was either or an accident, or I killed her. That was one of three things.
And the medical examiners that we went to, the three experts, including reconstructionists, all said, those first two, 0 chance.
Ruled them out.
There's nobody in the United States of America that has died with those two things that you're talking about. I mean, but that's not. We have a mark on the neck with a hemorrhage. Someone forced her down. So there's a 0 chance, and number 3 is the only possibility. It's 100% certain that that's what happened.
Looking at it like we're looking at it, you agree that this is a homicide?
At this point, I'm going to just have to stop the conversation here. I probably need to ask for a lawyer. You know, because I can't go any further with this.
Why not? What do you mean?
Well,
I mean,
are you going to?
we're not putting any pressure on you or nothing like that. We don't want you to say anything that, you know, you don't want to say.
Okay. Am I being accused? Am I under arrest?
Well,
etc.
right now, we're just talking to you about this here, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think you're looking too far down the road. You know, we need to get past all of this here.
Oh, Detective Guy just here for
Hey,
just a minute.
okay, Tom.
Sorry.
Oh, excuse me, Frank. You want some more water?
Yes, I got some more water.
You gotta go to the bathroom?
No.
No, you're good for right now? Okay, hang in there, okay?
At the publishing of this video, Frank is hanging in there at Illinois River Correctional Facility. Shortly after this interrogation, he was arrested for first-degree murder. In 2019, he was convicted and sentenced to 25 years in prison. By the time his sentence is up, he will be 99 years old.